Hi, friends. This is Kathy Lanzalanco. Welcome to another episode of Inspire Careers Spotlight on Careers, the video podcast series where I interview experts from all across the career management space to bring them to you, bringing you best-in-class career-related information and helping you advance in your careers. I'd like to keep you up to date, and today I am really excited about my guest who has a lot of great information to share. Welcome to the program today, Collin Gehl. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Kathy?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for joining me today, Collin. I'm going to introduce you first, and then we will get into the interview, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Collin Gehl has been with Say Yes Buffalo since 2019, and in 2021, he was named to the organization's first full-time human resource director. Yay, Say Yes Buffalo. That's awesome. Collin is responsible for the overall administration of the HR department, sits on numerous committees and teams, and very importantly, I wanted to call out that recently he won the SHRMLab's Better Workplace Challenge Cup. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to talk about SHRM for all you HR lovers out there. Collin assumed the presidency of the board of directors of the Buffalo Niagara Human Resource Association in September of 22, although he had been a member for 4 years before that. And Collin and I served on that board together, so I'm so honored to have him here today to speak with us a little bit about that. Collin has a background in nonprofits, being part of the original staff of the King Center Charter School, and also holding positions at the Buffalo History Museum, the Museum of Science, and Housing Opportunities Made Equal. He has a bachelor's degree in English from UB here in Buffalo and a master's degree from Medaille University. He is also on the board of directors for Just Buffalo Literacy Center and a member of the Emerging Philanthropists of Color under the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo. Sounds like Collin is all over Buffalo, and I do know he is. He's very involved and takes his work. He's very passionate about it. He is also alumni of Leadership Buffalo, Rising Leaders Class of 04, and a former board member of Tapestry Charter School. So welcome, Collin.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm so excited to be here.
That's a mouthful. Collin's got a lot going on, so I had to check my notes to get them all in. So thank you for providing that. But I think that's a really important place. So let's start right there. You're very active in the community. You're active in your HR organizations. You're breaking new ground at Say Yes Buffalo. So let's start with that. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Collin. Tell us how you got into HR in the first place. Tell us a little bit about Say Yes Buffalo. And I got a list of questions after that.
Okay. So about myself. So I actually was born in New York City. My parents are Buffalonians though. So so I was about a year old, and they said, we really actually want to raise our family in Buffalo. So I moved from New York City to Buffalo when I was like a baby. So, but I went to I'm a product of Buffalo Public Schools. I graduated from City Honors. And then I went to UB, and then years later I went to Medaille. And my parents have a background in nonprofit, so they have been a nonprofit and as well as sort of community work. So they sort of are the reason why I am who I am today. And so I always felt the pull to do meaningful, impactful work. So I basically have been working nonprofit my whole career. Which has been very fulfilling emotionally, and spiritually, not always financially, but I'm a firm believer in everything happening for a reason. And there was an opportunity for me, in 2016. I had been out of work. I got laid off at the beginning of 2015, and I was out of work for 8 months. I was always getting down to the final two. It was always me and somebody else. And then they were taking to somebody else. And I was like, I don't know what's happening here. And I basically then started doing temp work. So I was in essence underemployed. So I was underemployed for several months, and an opportunity presented itself at Child and Family Services in Buffalo. It's a large nonprofit in Buffalo, and they had a management fellowship, and the idea around it was to increase the likelihood of having managers of color in the organization because they were struggling with some diversity issues. And so I went in. And so the whole idea of the fellowship was like how a fellowship may work at, a corporation, which is, working in a specific area for a period of time and then rotating. And that was sort of what happened there. HR was my second rotation. And so and I had always done some pieces of HR in my other roles. I had been, a manager at the Science Museum, and I ran the front of house operations. So I had to do the recruiting, I had to do the managing, I had to do all this stuff. So I've always done some pieces of HR. And I went into the department, and it was a new HR director who had just started. And she and I sort of hit it off. She liked some of my ideas. And she said, if a role opens up, I wonder if they would let you leave the fellowship to come in to this department. And I said, well, it's the first year of the fellowship. I don't know if they're going to let that happen. Well, it happened. So I was in the fellowship, and the HR director at Child and Family Services really liked what I was bringing to the table, and she said, if there is if there's a role here in our department, do you think they would let you leave the fellowship to join? I said, well, I don't know. I'm thinking it's the first year of the fellowship. I was an inaugural fellow, and but they did. So the role opened up. And I went into the HR department. I was hired as a talent acquisition specialist. And immediately I made some impacts. And it was really, and I fell in love with it. I really, really loved the work. And I was just like, okay. And so one of the things that I was trying to do was, make connections. And the HR director, her name is Amy Cortesi. I always will speak her name. She's still a friend of mine. And she's the reason why I'm on the path that I'm on. She said, you might want to start going to BNHRA events or something. She said, I was active. She said, I'm a member. I was actively involved. I haven't really been doing it. And I said, all right, I'm going to go. So I went to an event. And I hit it off with a young lady by the name of Tiffany Dillon. Tiffany was the college relations director on the board of BNHRA. She asked me to participate on a committee for one of their young professional events, and I said to her, "Well, I'm not really young, I was pushing it at that stage of the game," and I said, "But I'll join the committee," and I did. Well, she was soon picked to be president. And so she was leaving her college relations role. And she said, hey, would you be interested in being my successor and joining and being the college relations director? And I said, okay, sure. And I did. And that got me on my path. And so really it was all sort of lining up. And I think that everything that I did with my HR, everything I've done with my career, but specifically my HR career, has been very deliberate. I'm a firm believer in signs, especially as I've grown older. So I always look for those signs.
Yeah.
But I was very deliberate in terms of my decision making. I wanted to make an impact, and how was I able to make the greatest impact? And also there was a part of me that felt that I was coming into the HR space, about 15, 16 years into my career, my post undergraduate career. So there was a part of me that said, I'm trying to make up for some lost time here. So how can I make the biggest impact now, not having sort of those years experience? And that was a great way to do it.
Wow, that's incredible. But you know what you bring out, and it's so true. I know it was true for me, and most HR people I know came into it through a back door. They didn't set out to do it. I shared with you in the past that my first career was a registered nurse, and then one thing led to another. The doors opened. I built a career in HR for over 15 years before I started my own business. So many people do that, but what do you think is the advantage to that? What has been your advantage, Collin, of kind of having all those years of experience before you went into HR? Did it help you? What are your reflections on that?
I think it absolutely has been a key to my success.
Yeah.
Really, I have a different perspective. So it's not all like textbook HR, like HR case studies and HR law. And I think that because I have had to do work, I'm not going to say I had to do work, but I enjoy doing the work where I've been so connected with people, whether it was mission driven, whether I was serving clients, or even customers when I was at the Science Museum and the History Museum. Because of that, I'm very people-centered and I'm very people-focused. And I think that that has been very successful for me in terms of my HR role, especially when I was doing talent acquisition. I mean, you have to be connecting with people.
Yeah.
And the more you connect with people and the better you effectively connect with people, the more successful you are in that space. But then I'd also say that because I was able to do that and connect with people, it has helped me in terms of my relationships on the board. I think that I feel like I've developed really good rapport with the board members. And I've been on the board since 2018 now, and which is, it seems like it's hard to believe it's been that long, but I feel like it's been really impactful. And I've also been able to connect with our membership, our BNHRA membership as well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I am so people focused, and that all comes from sort of the past roles that I've had.
Yeah, you make a great point at that. And the truth is you are very people-centered. I will absolutely say that as someone that knows you through the BNHRA. And I will say that. And I think bringing that level of experience and of maturity into these more senior roles, even new to HR, because it's just like anything else, you can learn the discipline, but can you really relate to the people? Do you have that passion for it? And the people that I know that come into HR through that back door as well, or not necessarily was their first intention, they do fall in love with the work. And I do believe that you have to love the work to do HR. It's grueling in some cases. It can be very demanding. Forget the long hours. I mean, that we know that. But some of the things that people are dealing with in the workplace now, HR has evolved so much over time. And so let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, now you've built this career in HR and you are leading this wonderful local organization. You've been seen at a national level, and I want to talk about you just coming back from the SHRM conference, but let's just talk about HR for a second in terms of in the time that you've been in it so far. What do you think has been the greatest challenge that you have faced, or maybe the greatest change that you have seen over this past time?
Well, I think the greatest challenge I faced is really providing support for the staff during COVID. That was really challenging because it was the pandemic. None of us knew what was happening. And so people are like, so a lot of people are dealing with depressions, and other types of mental health things that popped up. There were performance issues that popped up. We had to switch to all remote for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And then we had to also manage coming back, because even though I guess now technically we're post-pandemic, but it was a long time, and we had already been working about a year since, in the workspace, and before we were really declared post-pandemic, and just even getting people used to that, and also meeting people where they were in terms of just being able to provide the supports that they needed. And then the other thing that was really frustrating, I think, was the concept of, with the vaccines. That was the other thing that popped up, because it really sort of changed
Please.
my perspective. So my perspective is my perspective, and I just thought, and I'm very, and full disclosure for myself, I said, where's that vaccine? Get it to me, because I want to get back to my life. That
Yeah.
was, and I had this assumption that everybody was thinking the same way, and then I realized they weren't. And so then and that actually was a great lesson, because I just said to myself, Collin, okay, so you have to approach this as, okay, so Collin Gehl, the person, this is what you believe. But Collin Gehl, the HR professional, you have to be very neutral, and you just need to present what you present, and then let people do what they're going to do, and go from there. And that was definitely a challenge, definitely.
I'm glad you brought that up because I will tell you, I am still talking to professionals within their career that are still feeling that fallout. I work with a lot of young adults launching into new careers, and they're still feeling the impact of those college years during COVID with the virtual learning, not having their internships. And even during COVID, as a career coach, I had a lot of people that came to me. They did not want to get the vaccines. They wanted to move off the grid. There was one point I had a handful of people at one time, and I want to say like 4 people, and I think that's a lot for this statement, that were all leaving New York State to go to Tennessee. They were
Mm,
like all going off the grid down there. They were all, I don't know what it was about Tennessee in particular, but it was a real lifestyle change. And now that we're out of it already and we're all kind of back to normal, it's easy to forget, but there's still a lot of baggage that comes with it and a lot of things that have not changed or that have impacted people in the workforce that we still have to be aware of.
We definitely are seeing those results. And one of the things that I have said, I give a presentation for our new hire orientation, and I review some of the programs that we do here at Say Yes. I guess it'll be a segue to talk about Say Yes, but one of the programs that we do is a program called, we help to facilitate community schools programming in the Buffalo Public Schools. And we talk about some of the things that we have seen in other cities where community schools models has been implemented. You see higher engagement of children, they increasing their attendance and grades and more engagement from their parents. And one of the things that you saw was lower suspension rates. But what we have found, and we are finding that to happen, but when community schools return to in-person learning or in-person sort of programming, we were not finding that. We were finding higher suspension rates, and there's been articles in the Buffalo News talking about that. And the idea was a lot of things that we've been hearing, or there's been this narrative that our students are just so traumatized that they respond to things quickly and everything. And I absolutely agree that's part of it. But the other part of it is that the adults are traumatized too. I said, we all are. I said, so they don't have the same patience that they had before. That and so it's just totally different. And that's what we're seeing also with our staff. Our staff is still struggling with some things, and in terms of I think as a result of the pandemic, or some things that triggered other things that were just maybe below the surface. And so we have been we're really big at Say Yes on embedding self-care into everything that we do, including supervision. So we always start off, how are you doing? What's happening? And then as we talk about sort of the positions, or the work that has been done, it's, we basically say, how are things going? Do you need any additional supports? Especially if people are starting to have some sort of slippage of work, it's like, is there anything that we can do? Is there, have you considered EAP? Because we have an employee assistance program that we're able to refer our folks to, and they utilize it. But we really embed that in, because it's just it was important before, but I think it's critical now.
Well, it's critical if you really want your team to feel safe, if you want them to do their best work. I think that's one of the good things that has come out of the pandemic, is the fact that we talk openly about that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think only certain companies did it before, and that doesn't mean every company is doing what they should be doing or where they should be with it. And kudos to the ones who are on the journey to do that. But it's really important if you want your team to remain engaged. It's bigger than the money piece, although of course, engaged, safe employees, they produce better, they stay at organizations. So there's a real financial benefit. But beyond that, the right thing to do for the human beings. And when you can mesh those two, really, that's beautiful. Why don't we talk a little bit about Say Yes Buffalo? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do there, Collin? Not just you, but the organization itself, and its profile within the Buffalo area.
Sure. So Say Yes Buffalo, basically it began as a local chapter of a larger organization called Say Yes to Education. And Say Yes to Education was known for providing promise scholarships to students in particular areas. So if the students graduated high school, they could be eligible for a full college scholarship. And so there were different chapters around the country, Cleveland, Syracuse, etc. And Say Yes to Education as an entity actually closed in 2020. But Say Yes Buffalo, we existed as the Buffalo chapter of Say Yes to Education starting in 2012. And so the organization continued to grow. And so not only were we providing Promise Scholarship, but we were providing programmatic supports for the students and their families along the way, because it's not just about saying you finish high school and we'll give you money. It's, because people, they'll want it, but if they have no supports and they have no way to get it, what's the point? So as an organization, we have built programming to help support our children. And so we do what we call a cradle to career continuum. We are now at a point where 11 years post being found as an organization, and we have 3-year-old classrooms, which is the most recent part of our programming portfolio. And it is a 3-year-old classrooms called Little Scholars. So we have 3-year-old classrooms embedded in select community schools. So right now, currently in this moment in time, we're in the summer of 2023. We had the first 2 classrooms launch in March. We have 4 additional classrooms set to launch in the fall. So we'll have 6 classrooms. They're embedded in Buffalo Public Schools, and they provide the students that earlier intervention piece to really get into the learning, so that they are going to be able to, by the time they get to kindergarten, they're going to be on grade level, they're ready to go, and they're going to continue on. But we will continue to provide them with supports. So they have supports all the way through high school and into college, because we support our college, our Say Yes scholars that are in college. And then the other thing that we have developed is, so not everybody wants to go to college, or maybe not everyone's made to go to college or a traditional 4-year or 2-year institution. We have an apprenticeship program as well, which was newly launched in the fall of 2021, and so we have already had the first cohort of apprentices that has gone through the program. We are now in the second cohort, and so it is a workplace apprenticeship program. It's a 3-year program, and so the apprentices will work at a select company or organization, and they're doing meaningful work. And at the same time that they're doing the apprenticeship, they're also taking some sort of higher education courses. So it's sort of like a dual track. And so by the time they finish in the 3 years, they'll have some sort of certificate, and they will have also learned the job, so they can, and the idea is for them to be hired into the organization full time at that point. So it's part-time hours up until that point. And so we have that. So we have this whole cradle to career continuum that we have set up.
And you probably kind of found yourself at the intersection as you're talking. The lights are going off in my head. That the mission of your organization, and now the state of the world, and that there's a lot of trend now that young people are not going to traditional colleges. They need that experience. They're tired of the debt, the crazy college debt they come out with. They're finding they need more support. They need to have more hands-on training as well. So now you find yourself at that intersection, that really where your mission and the world is right now. It's got to be a pretty exciting time for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, and as an organization, we've had this new programming. So Little Scholars, for example, that is resulting in about 40 new hires here at Say Yes. Our apprenticeship program, which, we actually were able to sort of transition some folks who already were internal into some roles, but now we're just continuing to grow. And, that's probably going to result in another 10 positions. As an organization, I mean, we are currently at about 170. We were, I mean, last year at this time, I think we were about 100. So, I mean, like we've grown that much in a year, and we're just continuing to grow. And so, which has been fantastic. Absolutely love it. As I was at one point, the lone HR professional, it was a little challenging, but then, I have a smaller team, and we're continuing to grow. But yes, it's been fantastic. Just really being able to impact, the professionals in the workplace and giving them the supports that they need in order for them to do their jobs and to be successful.
Ah, fantastic. That's exciting. Good for you. And when you talk about adding like 70 positions in a year, that's crazy talk. I mean, that's a lot. That's an incredible impact here in the Buffalo area. And I know from an HR perspective, that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So listen, let's shift a little bit. Talking about HR leadership, let's talk about the Buffalo Niagara Human Resources Association, the BNHRA as we call it. And you are the prez. So let's talk a little bit about the organization. Can you tell our listeners what the organization is, what our mission is, and then I'm hoping we can invite anybody that's interested. They can also reach out to either one of us to talk, but tell us a little bit about that, Collin.
So basically how I look at the BNHRA is that we are the support for the HR professionals in the Buffalo Niagara region. So we are here to provide support, any support that's needed. But one of the things that we do in terms of proactively is that we provide programmatic support. So we get a lot of education for these HR professionals, especially, and if those who are SHRM certified or HRCI certified, they earn education credits, by attending by attending seminars or events or what have you. We also provide legal updates to the Buffalo Niagara region at least twice a year, and sometimes more, about sort of what is going on with HR law, because that's something that people really need to know about. And in addition, we also provide like fun activities. We're a fun group. We do a lot of
we are. Yeah, we are.
yeah, we do a lot of sort of fun networking events. So one of the things that we did was that we collaborated with these other entities and other organizations to bring to the HR community some additional information about the resources that already exist in the Buffalo Niagara region that have been untapped, because there was a labor market assessment that Invest Buffalo Niagara did, and it came up really sort of showing our region was really underutilizing specific populations, especially those of color.
Absolutely. Collin, you make a great point, and I hope that HR professionals are listening to this. And even if you're listening and not in the Buffalo area, probably your major city has its own chapter. But being involved at HR and having that local support is so critical. I was a member of the BNHRA for about 20 years before I became a board member, and I did it to be able to give back. And now I help other HR people in transition. And I think that's the important thing, is they need to understand that we're not just all about legal updates, but that's a critical piece of what we do. But it is that support. It is a place to be able to come together with like-minded people, to have fun, to learn, to network. And we're all in that same realm of what's happening there. And it's really a great place to be able to idea share and to learn with people that are doing similar work. And again, whether you're in Buffalo or without, but here in the Buffalo area, we have a very active team. We have a robust membership. So I'm hoping that anybody's seeing this and saying either, oh, I didn't know about it, which, that's something else we got to talk about if you didn't know about it. But if you didn't, please, and we'll put information at the end of this, but reach out to Collin or myself. We can direct you to our membership director too. There's a lot of great things, but please visit our website too at bnhra.org and take a look at all the great stuff that we have there. But HR needs support. That's the message here, is that HR is so busy taking care of everybody else. Who's supporting HR?
Correct.
Right. So HR leaders need the support. And oftentimes, I know from working in an organization, is that not that we're neglected. I don't mean to say that, but sometimes we're overlooked, or it's the assumption that HR's got it all together, and HR's been through it. I mean, there's a lot of people that need that support, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. And I mean, I think, one of the things that, one of the reasons why I really love working at Say Yes, it's not just about the mission and the people, but really also just how kind my coworkers are. And so there's two examples that I'm gonna bring up. About a year ago, there was an issue with payroll. I don't know what happened. All I know is that I rolled in. Thought I was doing well. I came in really early. It was like 7:25 on a Friday. I'm like, oh, I'm early. Da, 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 da. I checked my email and I'm seeing I had at least two emails about asking me about payroll. And they said, my money's not in my account, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's odd. And it had come at like 7 in the morning. And
Yeah.
I was like, huh. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call and I said, okay. And so now I'm like, well, what happened? Now, here's the thing. I don't do payroll, so to speak. I mean, I'll approve any changes or anything like that, but that's already a function. Now we actually outsource our payroll. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's happening? So I contacted them and they said, well, we put this through, we have records of that. I contacted our CFO. She's like, well, everything went through. So she said, I'm going to call the bank. It was a bank issue. And it had, this whole thing had happened. And there was and it was just like a delay in terms of getting hold of who needed you had to get a hold of. And this is the whole thing. Meanwhile, the day is going on. And, people, and then I was told one thing, okay, everything would be set by noon. So I communicate this to people. Noon comes and goes and nothing happens. And this is also a Friday. And this is last year, 2022, and at the end of March, we were going to be doing a happy hour. The first time Say Yes was doing an in-person happy hour, I think, since the pandemic. And so I'm like, what is happening? This whole thing. And so I'm talking to the CEO. We're doing all this stuff, figuring all this stuff out. Our CFO is like, what is going on? She is all upset. So we're trying to work with the bank. And the bank, of course, was ugly. So our CEO, an incredible person, basically, he put out a communication to the team. He said, this is sort of what's happening, blah, blah. We were really trying to update people along the way. And he even said, if you need, some money, let me know. We'll figure some things out, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like he would, but then there was time for this happy hour. And I was like, I can't go to a happy hour where I'm trying to sit up here, smiling and laughing when I know people haven't gotten paid. And, I was just like, no, I can't I'm still going to keep working here. And so I'm trying to do this and, but it was a lot. And people were coming into my office and they were like, well, the money's still in here. And they weren't mad, but they were just sort of like, sort of stern. And I was, just trying to be as empathetic as possible. But I had a whole bunch of people also come to me and say, Collin, are you okay? Are you okay? Because they said, because I know that you're thinking that it's your fault, even though it's not your fault and everything like that. And I was like, well, I'm doing all right. So it basically, fast forward to the end of the day, people finally started getting paid like in the nighttime. And I was exhausted, but I really reflected on the fact that the staff at Say Yes, really, they were like, are you all right? That was just really wonderful. And then the other thing is that, we had a major, unfortunately, at our new offices that we moved into in 2022, at the beginning of this year, we had a major flood that happened. And it happened the day I started a vacation. So I was on vacation and this thing happened. And one of the things that I thought was really just kind was that no one from the senior management team, which I sit on, contacted me and said, Collin, we need your help. We need you to do that. They knew that I needed this time and they left me alone. And that was just, I was so kind. And it was not only them, but it was also my team too. Like nobody contacted me. And I just was like, wow, they really just appreciated me as a person and didn't think of me as sort of a position, because I oversee the facilities too here at SAYS. So it was just really, really wonderful. So those pieces there.
Yeah, but I would offer, because I know you well enough to say this too, I would offer that you've also set your team up for empowerment, making decisions, figuring out what they need to do, recognizing that, yes, I mean, tomorrow you could leave the organization. I mean, anything could happen. You could not show up for whatever reason, but you've trained them, you've supported them, you've given them the power to make the decisions. And because you trust them to do that and they're capable of doing it, they can do it. And they felt
I like
empowered
to
by
think
it.
so. Yeah, I like to think so. I like to think so. But the fact is that they did. The fact is that people recognize me as a person. So it's like, even though I'm the HR guy and people come to me with all different types of things, it was nice for me to know that there is that support as well. So I felt that support. So that's one of the things, I always talk about with BNHRA and with the board. I'm always like, I'm always checking in with everybody. I have these
Yeah,
check-ins
yeah,
I
you
do
do.
because I want to make sure everybody's okay, because you're right, Kathy. People, they don't think of HR folks as, sometimes they don't think of us as humans,
There's
so
real people. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so they're like, oh, you could handle this, da, da, da. And even how our work has been, I think, undervalued traditionally. And I think that, and the impact that we make is also just underestimated, undervalued and underestimated. I say that's, and underappreciated sometimes. That's what I'd say is that HR professionals are feeling.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And listen, that's a great segue into talking about national support for HR. You've just come back from the SHRM conference. And,
Yes.
I know, well, hold on, we're frozen here a second. So let's sit here a minute. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Oh, there
I
we
saw,
are. We're
yeah,
back.
you froze. I don't know. Do you see me? Okay,
I
okay.
can see you now. Okay. All right. Let's start that again. So let's talk now about support for HR professionals from the national level. You just came back from the SHRM conference, and meeting Miss Janet Jackson aside, or you didn't actually meet her, but you were close to her for
I
the
was.
conference, right? That's a whole other podcast we should have. But tell us a little bit about the SHRM conference for any HR folks who have not been there, or it's been a while. Give us some of the highlights and why you recommend that HR people put that on their calendar at some point.
I mean, it was it was my first time going. It was incredible.
Oh, really?
There are multiple reasons why I think that HR professionals should go, and I really, and I really hope financially they're able to do it. So I hope that either they're able to utilize, there is a SHRM scholarship, so you can do that as well. But even I hope that your company will invest in you going. But I will say that going to the conference, first of all, you're in spaces with all HR professionals, which is something that's very rare, that I'm in a room with basically all HR professionals, unless it's BNHRA. And so not only are you in there with HR professionals, but HR professionals from all different, regions and areas of the United States, and sometimes it's international too, because SHRM is an international organization. The number of workshops that they put on was just, incredible, and all different types of topics, and I thought that I learned quite a bit. Every single session that I went into, I learned something, which was really wonderful. And then, also just even we were exposed to some great speakers. Bill Clinton spoke with us. We had Mitch Albom, who is known for the author of Tuesdays with Morrie. And he gave this incredible speech that was an emotional journey that I don't think any of us were expecting. It was, Tuesday morning, and I was just sort of like, okay. And that thing, when I was like,
I know, I know.
and people were boo-hooing. It was something. And then also, I mean, I guess Janet Jackson was there too. She performs privately for SHRM, the SHRM audience, which was really wonderful. But I will just say that, and also I will say for myself, as an HR professional of color, I had never seen so many HR professionals of color ever. And it helped me because it was like, okay, I feel in the Buffalo Niagara region, Buffalo Niagara region, we have, we're the sixth most segregated region in the United States. There's definitely underrepresentation here. So there's always that, I had that lens of that might be happening across the board, and it may very well be, but I still saw so many HR professionals of color in one setting, and that was just really energizing to me and inspiring.
But the whole thing seems, the message that you're sharing is, the whole thing is inspiring, and it's bringing fresh energy. But when you talk about being able to see other people that look like you, that have different experiences but similar experiences, right? It's so much that it just widens your whole scope, and it does encourage you to say, yeah, you know what, there's more work to be done, but we are the change, we can make the change. and really going away and having some fun with people who are in the trenches like we are, you know, the HR people are every day. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. For sure.
So what did you bring back in terms of what the future of HR? Like, are they pulling back the curtain a little bit? What are kind of some of those projections? I'm guessing that AI has something to do with it, but overall, in terms of what are they talking about the future of HR? I think that'd be a great way to tie up our time together.
Sure. So I think that I think that definitely AI is a piece for sure. You know, just sort of navigating how that is going to look in the workplace or how it could look in the workplace.
Yeah.
I think was very important. And I know that BNHRA just did an event on that as well. A legal update on that, if I'm remembering correctly. And you know, so that is gonna, and I think it's still unknown. So I think that was the other thing. It was just sort of like, these are the beginnings, these are some of the things that could be happening, but I think this is going to be a subject matter that is just going to continue to expand and evolve. But the other thing that I thought was really clear was that the whole concept of support for mental health in the workplace, I think, is another piece that is going to be that is where HR is going to go. I mean, we talk about mental health in the workplace for the first time, you know, for a long time, because I think we always would hear, you know, leave your personal life at the door and da, 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 da. And I think now that's changed. And I think that, and one of the reasons why I think that also it became clear with SHRM was that, you know, there was a HR professional innovation sort of contest, and so there was so I won something for better, called the Better Workplaces Cup Challenge, and that was, so I was the inaugural winner for the member track
Woo,
of
woo,
that.
woo. Nice job.
So as a SHRM member, I had developed a program called Leadership 101, which I developed for Say Yes Buffalo. It's an emerging leaders program for existing staff in our organization. So I will just say that it was incredibly humbling to be a part of that. But really, the program, 6 sessions for our emerging leaders, coupled with trainings, as well as external or internal presenters on a specific leadership topic. And I will say that I had a cohort of 16, and 8 of them, as of right now, they graduated officially in January. As of right now, 8 of them have had either internal or external promotions, where they have exited. If they exit the organization, we call it an external promotion if they've taken a role that is higher than the one that they had here. And so, I mean, I figured that was really, really good. So yeah, so we were able, so I will say that, so I say that because that was one of the reasons why I went to the conference. But while I was getting that, while I was receiving that accolade, there was a workplace innovation contest going on, and so the 2 finalists each had some sort of program that was related to supporting your team, in terms of, and so the winner was an app that basically would put that staff had, like, they could get $30 a month that they could use, so, you know, for whatever that they needed. But again, it was all about sort of supporting the employee. And so and the runner-up was almost like a counseling app type of thing. And I just thought about that. I said, so this is the final 2, and this is all about supporting our staff, our employees. So I said, that is definitely the future of HR. So I think that what we are going to find, and I say this because I want those HR professionals that have been working maybe for a while, and who still believe that, you know, your personal life should stay at home and everything like that. I'd like them to reflect on that and really think, are you going to be able to work, you make that adjustment? Because if not, because this is the future, this is the wave of the future. So if you're not going to be able to do that, I really strongly encourage people to reflect on whether or not this is still the right fit. You know, I think it's really important. We are going to need more empathetic HR professionals, in order to really be able to do this work and do the work effectively.
Wow, that's like a drop the mic moment. That's incredible, Collin. It truly is, because that is not the HR world I grew up in. Not that we did not respect our people, not that we did not always try to do the right thing, that we did the advocacy, all of those things, but this is a shift. This is an absolute shift. And the balance, of course, any company representatives or people that have been in HR a long time are thinking, wait a minute, we got business to run here. That's nice hand holding or whatever they want to say, but they're thinking about that and they think they have a business to run. But again, this is why these organizations like BNHRA and SHRM and coming together with other people in this profession are so critical, because it helps you problem solve those things. And it helps you bring back those solutions to your companies. And it helps say, we can overcome this. Our organization may be different here than this one over here, but there are solutions. We can still get to these goals. We can still honor the human beings that are the ones that are working within here, and still be that win-win for the company and for the people. Right.
I agree. And the other thing that I often tell people, especially, Say Yes has been able to be a very successful employer. We were named top workplace top I can't remember which contest this was. It was top workplace in Western New York, and this was not the top places to work. That was business first. This was top workplaces. This was in conjunction with Buffalo News and a company called Intergage. But hey, we were named it. And for organizations sized 100 to 299, I want to get that make that clear. But as an organization, we support our team. We do sort of employee first, because our CEO believes that our employees are people first, their workers second. And if we're supporting our team, and they have that trust, they're going to work really hard for us. And they do. I mean, our turnover level is very, very low. It's very low. And I would say, so it makes good business sense. So when when the heads of these companies are saying, oh, we don't want to do this, and it's like, well, if you actually invest in your team, and it's not hard stuff to do. I mean, I'm gonna say I'm cheap. I come from a nonprofit background. I'm still acting as if we're a super small nonprofit. We're sort of mid-sized nonprofit, but I remember I used to work for organizations where it was like 10 people. So we didn't have money. I had to be very innovative with what I do. I still bring that spirit here, and I'm like, as long I said, just being nice to people and really caring for people and letting people know that you do that, they're gonna work hard for you. And that right there is saving a whole bunch of money. You're not having people calling in just willy-nilly. You're not just, you're not having people sort of half working because they're trying to get out the door. These are things that just make good business sense if you invest in your people.
And I think that's where we'll leave it today, because there's nothing more important than people. So let's just leave it at that. Collin Gehl, thank you so very much for being my guest here. What a pleasure to talk with you more. You're engaging, you're lovely, and I just gratefully appreciate your leadership here in the Buffalo community, and certainly with the BNHRA. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right, so this has been another episode of Inspire Career Spotlight on Careers. We're going to drop Collin's information below, so if you want to contact him, if you're interested and learn more about SHRM, BNHRA, you name it, Collin will talk to you. He's that fabulous. What you see is what you get here. So please feel free to reach out to him, reach out to me, and I'll be glad to help you as well. In the meantime, it's Kathy Lanzalaco saying thank you for watching this episode, and please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. But in the meantime, enjoy your day, and until we talk again, live inspired.